We're going to go ahead and get started. Find your seats and we'll get going here. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our Markham Symposium this afternoon. We are very excited to have you here. My name is Cinnamon Moffett, and I am the Research Program Manager here at Oregon State University, and am part of the team that supports the graduate student, undergraduate student awards. And so I'm just really, really excited to see all of you here and to see all of our award winners in the room. A couple of quick announcements. This is a hybrid event, so that means we have folks in the room and online. For folks online, we do have your cameras, mics, and screen shares disabled, but if you have any issues or any questions, just go ahead and put them into the chat. Our volunteer Taylor will help us navigate those when we get to questions and answer. For folks in the room, for the keynote section of today's presentation, if you have questions, raise your hand and Mariana and I will come around with a mic so that folks online can hear. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And I'm actually going to let Bob Cowan, the AVP of Marine Operations for Oregon State University and the Director of Hatfield, kick us off and welcome today's keynote speaker. So, Bob, take it away.
Thanks, Cinnamon. Well, I want to start by welcoming everyone. This is really one of my favorite events that we have here, and the opportunity to sort of celebrate our students and let them show us how great they are. And the Markham Symposium is that sort of event, but it's also important to recognize that we're able to do this. We're able to give these fellowships due to our donors, and they're a great resource that we have. They're part of our community, some internal, some external, but their gifts are what make this possible. So I really like to acknowledge and appreciate them. This year, we were able to give funding to 12 students, a total of almost $90,000. That's significant, and it's particularly nice that we're able to do it across different colleges and departments. So we had 6 different units that were represented among those 12 students. The awards are also really nice for the students themselves. It's an affirmation of the great work they're doing, and it's an opportunity for them, particularly in this symposium, to showcase some of their work. And so it's really, again, really important to see this sort of turnout, which is really nice. Today we're going to have, as I think Cinnamon was just saying, we'll have a poster session, and that is of the students who were just funded this year. So it's kind of what they're going to do. And then we'll have an Ignite session that is going to be showing the students that have closely, if not completely, completed their work. So to sort of see the 2 phases of the funding that they received. And then we will have also a keynote by our own homegrown Brittany Schwartzkopf. And not obviously in that order, because we're going to start off with Brittany first. So let me say a little bit about Brittany. She is a research fish biologist in the Fisheries Resources Division of the Southwest Fisheries Science Center. That's the National Marine Fisheries Service down in La Jolla. She earned her BS in Ecology, Behavior, and Evolution from the University of California at San Diego. So she's sort of returning back home in that regard. She went on to get her master's in Oceanography and Coastal Sciences at LSU. And then she came here, a smart move, and got her PhD in fishery science in the Department of Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation under the tutelage of Scott Happel. I think is out here. I can't see him at the moment, but huh? Oh, Palau. So no, I didn't see him. Anyway, she currently works on age, growth, reproductive biology, and distribution of pelagic species in the Northwest Pacific Ocean in support of stock assessment and management. And she also serves both as the trawl and cruise lead for some of the cruises that are fishery-independent cruises of nymphs. And she's a member of the Coastal Pelagic Species Management Team for the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. She's got a lot going on early in her career, trained here. Join me in welcoming Brittany. Thank you.
Yes, I think so. Thanks, Bob. It was very strange to be asked to come here because I really feel like I was in your seat not that long ago. So I was very honored to come back and pretty excited to share my journey. I've never done a keynote before. I had no idea where to start. So I thought it would be fun just to start at the beginning. This is also a very large file, so there could be some time. So just kind of an outline. I think there's 4 different parts to my journey, so I'll be going through them all. The first one was the most fun for me to make, kind of going back and looking at all the different photos I had, kind of trying to figure out what shaped me growing up to get me where I am. So I would say my journey started in the pool. So I did grow up with some advantages. I grew up in Southern California. I had a pool growing up, and my father was like, let's just get her in really early. So that's me at 6 months old. And then that's actually me learning how to scuba dive way too young in the pool. So I would go help him scrub out the pool, and he kind of taught me early on how to dive. So I really grew up with this love of water via the pool very early on. It's really these exposures as young kids that I think is really important that, sometimes we forget about. And so in 2002, I actually got my scuba certification. That's my dad with me. So he helped me learn how to dive. So he took the class with me, even though he was already certified. I think what helped kind of my journey is his dream as well. So he wanted to be an oceanographer. Fun fact, he gets really seasick. So he had to give up that dream. And so he is a geologist. So, growing up with a scientist as a father does help, and, it really instills a lot in you. So he kind of helped grow this love of water really from his not failed dream, but, not being able to become an oceanographer due to being seasick. We all know now that you can be an oceanographer without going out to sea, but I don't think, that was how it was back in the day. So he was a graduate of San Diego State, so I was also very fortunate to kind of have this college dream instilled in me early on. So he actually took me to some of the campuses around San Diego because I grew up in Southern California. And so even though you don't really know what college is at that age, you're kind of like, oh, I can envision myself here. That's really fun. So this kind of dream of college started pretty early. I saw the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. It's like, that's a cool campus. UC San Diego State. So it was really, this supportive family and showing me what, college can do for you and seeing what it did for him because he is a geologist. So that was great. So this is kind of my first dream. What does every young person who wants to be a marine biologist want to be? A dolphin trainer. So my parents got me some books. I'm like, oh, this is great. There's SeaWorld. I went to visit SeaWorld a lot. And so as a surprise, my parents got me a SeaWorld trainer for a day when I was 16. So it looks like I'm having a ton of fun. I did, but what's really funny is during that time, I asked the dolphin trainers a lot of questions because why not? You're with them for an entire day. So what I learned during that experience, and it's also kind of the start of my talk, try out your dreams before making them a reality. I learned during this experience that most people as dolphin trainers go to school for psychology, which did not really interest me. And then just getting to see what they did on a day-to-day basis. And it's like, wait, this isn't really marine biology is what I thought it was. So this was kind of my first experience of doing something where I thought it was my dream and realizing it wasn't actually my dream. So I decided to have a new dream. So let's try a different path of marine biology. And so with this kind of early installation of college growing up, from my parents. I applied to a lot of schools on the West Coast. I did want to stay in-state. And I will say I'm a product of Southern California, where in my mind it's like, oh, you can't really go to school anywhere else for marine biology, right? I very much know that's wrong now. But so I applied to a lot of schools. I actually went to a high school that didn't have any AP classes. It was a small private school. So I was able to get into a specific program where I knew I was at least going to be admitted to some UC campus. I didn't know which one. But I was lucky. I was admitted to UC San Diego, and being that I was able to visit that campus early on, I knew it was the place for me after doing even more college tours. So my parents took me to most of these campuses after being admitted so I could, really make an informed choice. I actually almost ended up at Santa Cruz, but I did decide to go to San Diego. So in 2006, I graduated high school. And then my path was UC San Diego, which kind of feeds me into what I call the fun years. The years you don't have as many responsibilities, and I miss. So for UC San Diego, my major was ecology, behavior, and evolution, and I actually minored in sociology. I find people fascinating. Fun fact, for one of my jobs in undergrad, I was a college tour guide, so I was a campus tour guide. So I got to give tours to people. I loved meeting everyone and giving them a tour. I also played club volleyball, and I had friends on the volleyball team. So there you see me getting ready to go cheer on some of the volleyball people. So when I first started, I didn't really actually know much about what major to choose. And so I decided to choose general biology just because it seemed the most broad, and I could really kind of pick what I wanted to do later. As I got into my first year, I learned about ecology, behavior, and evolution. I looked into that more, and what really drew me to that was it did not require organic chemistry or a chemistry lab, and I was very excited about that. Organic chemistry did not seem that exciting to me personally, but fun fact that had a very large consequence on where I could go to grad school. It was years later where I was looking into grad school because I always wanted to go to Scripps. Turns out Scripps requires organic chemistry. So getting out of some classes apparently have large repercussions, but it's okay. I think it all worked out. So luckily, the Birch Aquarium is a part of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. It's right near campus. And so it's like, maybe I want to be an aquarist. So during my time at UC San Diego, I was a volunteer aquarist. So I would go into the coral reef exhibit 4 hours once a week, clean tanks. It was during then I actually did some tide pool exhibits, so I got a little bit of marine education, and all of this was so fun. I really enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, let's keep this in the back of our mind. Let's keep this dream. Maybe I want to be an aquarist one day. Just a little fun fact, I actually got married last year at the Birch Aquarium. So it is funny how life is just a big circle. So it was fun to be back there for that. So besides volunteering as an aquarist, I actually really didn't do much in undergrad. I'm very jealous of all the experiences I feel like undergrads today get. They seem great. So the only other thing I really did besides volunteer as an aquarist was I did a study abroad program in Australia, specifically for marine biology and terrestrial ecology. So I looked at the diet of whiting. So it's a kind of a small reef fish. And so we got to seine for the fish ourselves. So it was my very first taste of research and actually getting to collect fish and then work them up myself. So a little bit of field work and lab work combined. And so that project was super fun. I loved it. I love food. And so looking at what other fish eat was very fascinating to me. You'll see that kind of throughout my journey as well. And then another project I looked at was called Snell's Window. So it's kind of different angles. So it's the angle at which fish can see predators come. And so we would do a lot of geometry. And so the fieldwork part was fun. But but I learned the geometry part wasn't as fun for me. So I definitely really enjoyed the diet work more, but it was also great to kind of see another research project, maybe what I didn't want to do. And so, of course, you know, after you're done with undergrad, you're like, yes, I'm done with school forever. That was a lot of, that was a long 4 years. So now what? You also see my family loves cake. And so it was during this time, it's kind of like, let's apply to jobs. And so I was able to get a position as a marine science instructor at a water sports camp for the summer after my graduation. It's like, I got a little bit of taste of the marine education at the aquarium. Like, this is a cool job. Let's try this out. Maybe this is what I want to do. And so we would actually get to take the kids snorkeling. So that's probably me right there trying to find a nudibranch to bring up to the kids so they can see the nudibranch. It's a sea cucumber. I learned very quickly that I definitely was not meant to be a marine science educator. I respect you all so much, very much, but that was definitely not the path for me. Excuse me, with all, I haven't talked like this in a while. It's fun. So during the time while I was a marine science instructor, I knew I didn't want to do that. It was only a summer job. So I was like, okay, I got to apply to internships, jobs. While I would be lucky that my parents would probably take me back, move back, definitely didn't want to do that. So I applied to a lot of internships. It's really fun going back to my old computer. I kept actually a Word document of everything I applied to and when I got responses, which a lot of those bullets were always missing. So there was a lot of things I applied to where I either got rejected, never heard back from, nothing. And a lot of these you're like, oh, I'm perfect for this. I actually worked as a dive master during my time in undergrad, so towards the end. And so there's a Six Flags diving position. I was like, I'm perfect for this. Never heard back. I even found an email where I applied to be an administrative assistant because I think I was getting desperate at that point. So rejection's very normal, but I tried not to let it get me down. The one thing I did hear from was the Moat Marine Laboratory. So in the end of 2020, I actually did an aquarist internship in Sarasota, Florida. I think this was one of the most integral experiences I had. It was a very strange story too. So the gentleman next to me, this is us feeding the sharks. It was really fun. However, what I learned very quickly is being an aquarist for 40 hours a week is very, very different than 4 hours a week. So I learned I did not want to be an aquarist. So this was actually a very important internship to do. Not only because I learned I didn't want to be an aquarist, but the gentleman also next to me showed up to this internship. I actually went to school with him at UC San Diego, and he showed up to the same internship out of the blue. Turns out he was going to grad school at Louisiana State University. And he kind of told me the professor had some extra funding, maybe I should email him. And there was another aquarist at Moat who also did her graduate program at Auburn University. So I started looking at grad school. I started thinking about it a little bit. But this internship was the first time I was really considering going back to school. And so I emailed both the professor at Auburn and the professor at Louisiana State. They both reached out. Louisiana State professor actually flew me out for a visit. And within a week of getting back from my internship in Florida, I was on my way driving to Louisiana to start the program. So without that internship in Florida, I would not be at Louisiana because, you know, being from Southern California, I was like, Louisiana, does that have a graduate program? Again, just had no idea about any other program. I was very closed off from, you know, even thinking about grad school when I was in undergrad. So this was great to go. And so now I call these the imperative years, because without these next years, I really don't think I'd be where I am today. I had called them the fun and the challenging years, because they were both fun and very challenging. As you all in graduate school now probably know that there are some challenges. And so from 2011 to 2014, I worked on my Master's of Science in Oceanography and Coastal Sciences, and I actually did my minor in statistics. While I didn't love geometry, I did learn that statistics was super fun and very applied. And so for my master's project, we were on a converted shrimp trawler that became a research vessel, so it's called the Blazing 7. So we actually went 100 miles offshore, 9 days every other month. So I got to do a lot of sea time. And so my work was assessing the habitat quality for red snapper on natural and artificial reefs. And so that map, the 3 natural reefs were called Bright, McGrail, and Chakula. They're a part of the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. I think they're all within the sanctuary now. Then East Cameron was our artificial reef complex. So fun fact, even though I grew up in Southern California, I had never gone fishing before. It wasn't until this project that I had caught my first fish ever, which is very, I think, strange. But so it was a massive project. It was funded by the BP oil spills. That happened in 2010. And so there were 5 of us on the project looking at different parts. I was looking at diet and nutritional condition. So, you know, again, what are they eating? So when I emailed the professor, I told him about my study abroad experience. It's like, this is really fascinating to me. So they needed someone to work on that part. So that worked out perfectly. And it was, again, another time for me to really kind of solidify my love of applied science. So what can this science do to help feed management or protect these species? I again also solidified my love of both field work and lab work. So I did a lot of lab work and microscope work, but I was also able to be the one to go collect the fish. So we were out to sea a lot. And then my advisor decided I should be the chief scientist of this project. I have no idea why he thought that was a good idea, but that was a very important experience. I was able to kind of learn how to, you know, organization, really planning all of these research cruises, which I do now. So it was a very fun time. But yeah, we had another student who did acoustics, trophic ecology with stable isotopes, age and growth, reproduction. So really seeing how all these different parts kind of fit together and having us all work together on this project. So yeah, loved that. And then during my time, I got my scientific diving certification. So I was really able to meld this love of scientific diving and science. So I was able to install some different sensors on oil platforms. So that was a really fun experience. And a lot of these programs, I was able to try and branch out. And so, you know, now I'm like, okay, I'm really done with school. Like, that was a lot. You know, I think I'm done. Now what? So this was 2014. My professor actually had asked if I'd wanted to stay for a PhD. But being from Southern California, I will say Louisiana is very, very different. And I had already started applying to some jobs, and many of them needed West Coast experiences. So I didn't think it was, maybe not a good idea is not the right word, but I wanted to kind of get more experiences elsewhere. So I decided not to continue on and get a PhD at LSU, and instead I wanted to go back to the West Coast. And so here I am. Luckily, my parents took me back in. Definitely, you know, fortunate that they were willing to do that, but we knew that was not going to be sustainable. So I'm applying to a ton of jobs on the West Coast. Lots of jobs within, CDFW, NOAA Fisheries, and kind of, again, we see the same thing of just rejection, no one responding, rejection. So definitely kind of gets you down things that seem like you're perfect for, and you're like, I don't understand why they're not responding. But it was my time at LSU and kind of the networking and people knowing people. So one of the professors at LSU knew the center director of the Southwest Fisheries Science Center. So that had kind of started to become my dream again. So I had told my advisor at Louisiana State, I was like, I'm going to work there one day. And he just kind of laughed at me. But one of the professors got me in touch with the center director, who then got me in touch with the person who staffs the survey. And so I actually went out to sea for 40 days, which is a lot. It was really fun on the Southwest Fisheries Science Center Coastal Pelagic Summer Survey, which you'll hear me talk about because I now help run it. So this was really fun. I got to be out there for 40 days. I was very lucky. So you can see me right there being really good because, back then and up until last year, we still did everything with pen and paper. So all the measurements, just everything was pen and paper. We're trying to modernize it now with electronic data collection. So be surprised at how long some things can take in the government. But I was on the Belle M. Shimada, which is home port in Newport. So it was also my first time in Oregon, in Newport. So that was a great experience. And it was during that time out at sea where I was talking to all the scientists. I got to know more about NOAA, their mission, what they stood for. And it was also a lot of the people out there that made me realize being where I wanted to be with my vision, I needed to go back to school. Guess I was not done with school. And so because I had just finished, I was kind of like, well, it feels like now or never. So while on the ship, decided to email as many professors as I could. So I scoured the internet, lots of people's websites, what research interested me. So I emailed a lot of professors while I was out at sea. So at Oregon State, I emailed 6 professors, 3 professors at Santa Barbara, someone at San Diego, UC San Diego. You'll know, how do you know how many professors you emailed, Brittany? I also apparently kept a Word document of every professor I'd emailed and what they responded. There were many that didn't respond. As all the professors know, you get way too many emails from prospective students, so it is understandable. Some responded positively, but they didn't have funding. Because I was a graduate research assistant at Louisiana State, so I didn't have to teach. My job was research. So Dr. Scott Appel had emailed me back saying, he had a project in mind. It actually had to do with some, natural and artificial habitat stuff, which is what I did for my master's. So that seemed perfect. And he had an opening coming up to be a graduate teaching assistant. And so we got to talking. I came out for a visit. And so within a few months, I had started my PhD at Oregon State. There's also another funny story. So in that same Word document of all the professors I emailed, I actually spelled Scott's name wrong. And I told him this. I was like, Scott, I think I spelled your name wrong. And he's like, oh, it's usually an instant, rejection, And then I went into my email and I still had that email and I checked my work and I did not spell it wrong. So that was funny. So yeah, always check your work. And so in 2015, I started my PhD here. And so I was looking at the function of Oregon estuaries for juvenile fishes. So like I mentioned, I was a graduate teaching assistant, so I was teaching. I had no research funding. I had never known how to get research funding. Scott was like, I expect my PhD students to find their own funding. I was like, that sounds exactly like, the experiences I want to get. And so without the Markham Award, I would not have been able to complete my PhD. So I am so very thankful I'm able to share my experiences at this symposium that helped me complete my PhD. So I looked at 3 different estuaries: Nehalem Bay, Yaquina Bay, and Alsea Bay. When I first started, I had 6 red boxes because I was like, I'm going to look at 6 estuaries. And then I slowly started realizing that was a terrible idea. There was no way that was going to happen because all of my work was dependent on tides. So trying to get to 6 different estuaries on the tides, that was not happening. So I looked at juvenile fishes in eelgrass sites and on dock piling structures. So this kind of natural versus artificial comparisons yet again. So in Yaquina Bay, I had 3 eelgrass sites and 3 dock sites. And in Nehalem Bay and Alsea Bay, I tried to have eelgrass sites, but I learned in Alsea Bay the currents are very strong. And I lost a few of my fish traps, which you can see in there. So that was nixed really fast. But I still collected fish at the dock sites once a month. And in Yaquina Bay, I sampled twice a month for about 3 years. So it was a lot of field work again. But it was super fun. I got to meet a lot of the public in the community. All the people at the dock sites I was able to meet, and they let me trap at their location. So it was this really fun way to interact with the public and kind of learn that aspect as well. And so my work had a few different parts. So I looked at the entire community structure. So I identified all the different species. And one of my chapters actually used data from 2 previous graduate students who had also been using these exact same fish traps to look at community structure in Yaquina Bay. My main focus, though, was juvenile rockfish. So I caught a few different species in Yaquina Bay and in the others. And then I focused specifically on juvenile black rockfish because that's what I caught the most of. And so I looked at their diet. Again, I just cannot get away from diet work. I also looked at their age and growth and some growth rates. And then I also tried my hand at otolith microchemistry and realized that was probably not the exact research for me. I apparently don't like chemistry. It's a theme. So that was all really fun and really exciting. And again, not possible without support from the Hatfield Student Awards. While I was at Oregon State, I tried to get a lot of different experiences, kind of maybe making up for my undergrad days where I only volunteered at the aquarium. So I worked with the ODFW Marine Reserves program with, scientific diving. I was able to really kind of get that going again. It was nice getting my scientific diving at Louisiana State because that carried over. So I had a really fun time with that. Loved helping to dive for research. But I think my favorite part while at Oregon State was mentoring students. I did a little bit of that at Louisiana State. We would have undergraduate students come help out on the survey, and I had one that helped me in the lab. But this, being with someone for an entire summer, helping them develop a project was really special to me. So I had a REU student for 3 different summers. They actually helped me almost develop my project. So I started in 2015 in January, and I had an REU student by the summer of 2015. So they kind of got to see the firsthand of what it looks like for someone to pretend to know what they look like they're doing. And then I also had another RE student in 2016 and 2017. So it's really fun to see what they're doing today. And, I still keep in touch with most of them. Then I also participated in the Fisheries and Wildlife undergraduate mentorship program. So I had a few different undergraduate students that helped me in the lab on campus and would help me in the field. So that was all really, really rewarding. And then I also got a grant through the NOAA Living Marine Resources Cooperative Science Center. So we had 2 undergraduate interns. One got sent to the Santa Cruz lab with NOAA looking at rockfish genetics. And then another undergraduate student came here to work with me in the lab and help me in the field. So I very quickly learned I love mentoring students and really helping. And I think it's, you know, those past experiences, realizing I grew up with a lot of advantages. So I really want to be in a position to help others, you know, and help them get to where I am today or wherever they want to be today. As I was a graduate teaching assistant, I think I counted 13 quarters of management principles of Pacific salmon in the Northwest. And I did like teaching. It was really fun interacting with the students, but group teaching and mentoring is not really the same for me personally, as one-on-one mentoring. So that experience was great, and it made me realize I did not want to go into academia. So again, all of these kind of things back to, you know, my title, try out your dreams before making them a reality. So there are a lot of things I learned that I did not want to do. So while here, I was able to actually get involved a bit more with NOAA. It was at my very first Marine Science Day at Hatfield here, where NOAA had a booth, and they had a flyer about their groundfish trawl survey and how they're looking for volunteers. I was like, that sounds great. I, you know, was out to sea a lot. I love being out to sea. So I was very thankful that Scott was supportive of me going. So I went in 2015 on one of their groundfish trawl surveys and in 2018. And that was a really fun experience. Definitely love that. So keep that in the back of my mind for something I want to do. And then I also participated in their hook and line survey, which is a directed survey mostly for shelf rockfish in the Southern California Bight. The NOAA groundfish trawl surveys on a larger commercial fishing vessel, looking at kind of more of an ecosystem component of all the different groundfish species. And the coastal pelagic survey that I went on in 2014, the Southwest Fisheries Science Center also did that, you know, kind of more of an ecosystem, lots of pelagics on a big NOAA vessel. The NOAA hook and line survey was on a smaller recreational vessel, kind of more focused on rockfish, which although I love rockfish, you know, I learned that I really enjoy these bigger vessels looking at kind of the ecosystem component. And so I'd be remiss to say, you know, while you're in grad school and undergrad, these are some really fun times. So while I was here, I tried to have a good work-life balance. So we did a lot of fun things in Oregon, Crater Lake. I met my husband here, and I helped one of my lab mates. She had a project in the Virgin Islands, so I actually got to go in place of Scott, who couldn't go help her. So I got to help out in the Virgin Islands. So the main point of the story is find people with cooler projects than you and to help them out. So that was really fun. And so I defended in 2020, but I was finishing up in 2019. So during that last year of my PhD, sometimes job applications, especially the government, can take a while. So I was applying to things towards the end of my degree. And again, I applied to so many NOAA jobs, some jobs at ODFW, a lot of rejection again. And so there's some positions where you think you're absolutely perfect and this is what you want to do. So the day I got a rejection from a job with ODFW that I thought I was perfect for, the posting for my current job came out. So just a really strange timing, you know, that kind of gives you hope when you just keep getting rejected. And so I applied for the NOAA position. It's also a very unique story from what I have been told. So USA Jobs is the government kind of system you apply to. I could spend an entire hour talking to you about the USA Jobs system. It's very intense and you have to hit certain keywords, and what will happen is your application goes to an HR firm, and so they're looking for keywords, and I actually got not referred. And so that means, you know, they didn't think I met the qualifications. I'm like, no, I know I did. And so I emailed them and they reversed the decision, which people told me they've never heard of. And so my name then got sent late with other applicants to the hiring managers. And so because I knew people at the Southwest Center, I actually emailed like, oh, you know, I think my name may have come late. So these past experiences are kind of catching up to me in a good way with all the people, you know, you network with and learn about. So I got an interview and here I am today. So even if you get rejected, appeal it. If you think you should. So yeah, you know, it's kind of that was my dream and nothing was going to stand in my way. So I actually got rejected from my current job. So that's just a fun kind of story. So, and there's me defending and actually being done with school. I don't think I'm going to go back. So this next part is what I call, you know, living the dream years. And it's my current position. So I actually started before I even defended. I was hoping to push back my start date until my defense, but there were other people starting at the same time they were hoping I could start with. So I started my current position of January of 2020, which I think is a year that will live in infamy. And so I started in January. I then had to take leave, flew back to Oregon in February, defended, packed up my house, moved my life back. And then COVID hit. So I got, I would say, a month of normalcy in my current job. And then we were all sent home from work and I had a lab at home. So that was my workstation for about 2 years. I would say on a plastic folding table because I did not think I would need a desk at home because I would go in every day at work. So I was fortunate that I could take a microscope home and work. But yeah, that was a very challenging time, as I'm sure everyone kind of experienced and dealt with, where you kind of experience this normal work and then you're all sent home and you're very isolated. You know, I started there a month ago. I knew no one yet. And so it was a very isolating time. It was nice being closer to my parents, though. I could visit them every so often when it was safe, but you know, we're a bit more back to normal now, which is nice. So I did want to talk about NOAA a little bit and, you know, kind of why I love working for them. The NOAA mission really spoke to me, and that, you know, I learned that early on during my time at the trawl survey. And so really this productive and sustainable fisheries and healthy ecosystem really spoke to me. And so in my current division, we conduct work on coastal pelagic species and highly migratory species. And our science is targeted to mostly managers. So we do a lot with management, stock assessments. The science is really applied. So what I do directly impacts management. But we also, you know, provide science to the community. So all of the Pacific Fisheries Management Council meetings are open to the public. There's a lot of public engagement. And so that's a lot of why I love working for NOAA. I feel like the work I do makes a difference. Get to do it for the management process. I'm on the coastal pelagic species management team, so I get to directly impact management by providing recommendations to the managers. And then there is a bit of academia, so I get to publish papers and do research. So that side I love. Get to go out to sea. And NOAA really emphasizes the work-life balance, which I appreciate. So these are the fish that we mostly work on. So I'm in the life history program, so I do a lot of age and growth, reproduction. I mostly focus on northern anchovy right now. We also do a lot of work on sardine and mackerel. And then a lot of other people in my group, not me specifically, will work on tuna species, opah, swordfish, things like that. So this is our big summer survey that I volunteered for that I now help run. So our group is in charge of the biological sampling side. It's an acoustic trawl method survey, so it's an 80-day survey. I'm usually out for 3 weeks at a time. I actually get on the ship Tuesday for some gear trial testings. So we are on the NOAA ship Reuben Lasker, which is home port in San Diego, and we do acoustics during the day to try and look at biomass of these species, and then at night, we trawl for them where we saw big biomasses. So I am a vampire for 3 weeks, and so our shift is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So this is me in 2021 with our first huge northern anchovy catch. And so in 2021, we actually, for the first time ever, worked with Mexican scientists, and we worked with Mexico to get a permit to fish in Mexican waters. And so the Department of Commerce actually recognized that was a huge international accomplishment and awarded me and a bunch of others in our group who work on the survey a Department of Commerce Silver Medal Award, which I was told could be a once in a career award. So hopefully I haven't peaked too early. I guess a gold medal, maybe could be next. But so yeah, I work with a lot of really good people on the survey doing great work. And some of the work I do now is age and growth. So these are the species we work on. So northern anchovy, Pacific mackerel, and Pacific sardine. That's the size of a 3-year-old fish. And so they're very, very tiny. So that's a dime. So it's just, we work on very small fish. And we're also part of this initiative with 6 other science centers looking at a new way to rapidly age fish. It's called Fourier transform near-infrared spectroscopy. I think this machine is also used in a lot of microplastics research. People in our group are trying to see if you could use it to age fish. It's working really well for the Alaska Fisheries Science Center and the Northwest Fisheries Science Center. Our species are kind of highly variable in their growth, so it's not working as well, but we're still looking into it. Doing some growth research on northern anchovy, so just published a paper. We have a lot of ongoing research on age validation using oxytetracycline to validate the annual rings, looking at sardine population structure, sample sizes. And then my favorite part that I get to keep doing for my job is mentoring students. So last year I had a InFish Scholar, which is the inclusive NOAA Fisheries Internship Program. So we actually got to take him out to sea with us. So that was a really great experience for him. And so I still keep in contact, helping him apply to grad school now. And so it's great that I can still continue mentoring students. And what's taking up most of my time, I'll try and go through briefly, is we're integrating our CPS survey with the Northwest Fisheries Science Center large hake survey. So we have to take these 2 surveys that are similar enough to combine, but also very different in that they trawl midwater during the day. We trawl at the surface at night. We work with Mexico, they work with Canada. And so now we are tasked with combining the 2 surveys while still collaborating with everyone. So it's been a huge undertaking that's taken up a lot of time, but it'll be really exciting when it happens. We had to design a completely new net and new doors that can both go midwater and on the surface. So both groups are going to be able to use the same net. And so that's what's actually happening on Tuesday for 6 days is we're doing some more gear testing. So we got this brand new net, and so we're going to test it out for 6 days in the new doors. And so kind of, there's lots of ways to get involved with NOAA if you're interested. I, again, could talk for hours about USA jobs, but that's the main pathway to apply to federal positions. There's also something called the Pathways Program for current students to look into. There's lots of volunteer opportunities on the at-sea surveys. I'm actually the staffing coordinator and volunteer coordinator for our survey, so I'm the person to talk to about volunteer opportunities for our survey. And then there's lots of different undergraduate scholarships and internship programs, fellowships. I'm sure a lot of you know about those, so there's some websites there. And then a lot of people don't know there's actually a lot of contracting positions. So these companies will get contracts with NOAA. So you're working with NOAA at NOAA as a part of the NOAA mission, but just with a contracting agency. So there's a lot of different positions as well to get involved with NOAA. So kind of the take homes. Hopefully you saw, finding out what you don't like can be just as useful as finding out what you do like. Rejections are very normal. I got so many. Don't let it get you down. If you want to do something, just keep pushing. And, branch out, try lots of new things, and, kind of find a good work-life balance. And so this is our dog Hazelnut, who we got in 2020. And so she keeps me happy now. But yeah, so That's it. Yeah, please ask me any questions. Thank you so much.
All right. So we've got about 10 minutes for questions, and we're going to bounce back and forth between those folks online and those folks in the room. So start out. Taylor, do we have any questions online at this time? All right. For anybody that's there, go ahead and put your questions into the chat box. For folks in the room, any questions for our speaker? Okay, we can't let, there we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Great talk, by the way.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
awesome. What were the most valuable classes you took during your undergraduate and graduate that kind of helped you throughout your
Yeah.
career?
That's a great question. So because I didn't have AP classes in high school, I had to do all the series. I didn't get out of anything. And so the third quarter of kind of the calculus series was a statistics class. So I think that was a really important class that really got me into statistics. Surprisingly, when I was an undergrad at UC San Diego, they didn't have many marine classes. Even though Scripps was right next door, they now have an actual marine biology degree. So that has changed, but my study abroad program really got me most of the marine biology classes. So I actually think that was some of the most important classes I took. I did take an intro to marine biology class and oceanography. But yeah, it was statistics that kind of really helped that as well. And then the different marine ones. Just even, broadening. I took some literature classes, music of the world. So it was fun to just branch out. But I would say, obviously the marine classes really helped.
All right. Other questions? Mariana, can you get Cheryl?
Not Cheryl.
So with a considerable scientific background and now having more exposure to the management side of things, curious if you have any suggestions for students, undergrads or graduates who might be interested in the management side of things to get exposure or to maybe make their work more relevant or anything along those lines.
That's a great question. So I forgot to mention, so during my master's, my advisor took us to the Gulf of Mexico Marine Fisheries Council. He took us to a meeting so we could actually see what one was like, and it was eye-opening. I think the Gulf Council is a lot more intense than the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. A lot of the fishermen in the South don't trust the scientists, and you can tell. So it was really eye-opening. So all of the Pacific Fishery Management Council meetings are open to the public and they're online. And so I actually just think watching one of them is really eye-opening, and just kind of seeing that process firsthand and all the different questions, and then the public comment where you see what the fishermen actually care about is really useful. And then, yeah, that was super useful. There's also the NAUS policy, fellowship for people who actually want to get into policy and management. And then when I was doing a lot of the applying for funding, they kind of had this management thing. So I would go and read all the missions. I would read the NOAA missions of like, this is what's important to us, and then try and match my research to that. I would try and hit those keywords like, my research does this to help this out. So I think reading a lot of those documents and applying for funding helped that way too.
Other questions in the room? Okay, go ahead, Taylor.
Okay, hopefully this works. Someone from online asked, are there any experiences you wish you didn't have? Like, did you ever regret not taking chemistry that would have helped you get into Scripps?
At the time, yes, I very much regretted not taking organic chemistry because I couldn't get into Scripps. But it's hard to have regrets when, things still kind of worked out the way they did and I was able to pivot. And I would just say keeping options open. There's programs across the country that I never knew about growing up. So yeah, maybe getting out of organic chemistry wasn't the best idea, but it also was a great idea for me at the time. So I don't know if that is the best answer to that question, but I try not to have too many regrets, even, you know, if they are back then. But yeah.
You mentioned keeping in touch with your mentors and maintaining those relationships. Do you have any recommendations or any strategies that you use to maintain those relationships and like how you went about it?
Yeah, I don't have any strategies making new relationships because, you know, I got involved into the program and then I just make sure to maintain them. So I think that's really important for anyone who, you know, is a mentor to a student, is to really kind of keep up with them. Social media has helped, which is nice, you know, because you can be friends on Facebook or things like that and keep in touch that way. But then, you know, texting, and I basically really stressed, if you have any questions or you need any help, please don't hesitate to reach out, and then they do. So, you know, keep in touch, like, how's it going? And then my RE student in 2016 was the same one from 2015, so that really helped kind of keep me in touch. And so we kept in touch as like, you want to come back? And she did want to come back. So that was really nice. So I think it's a lot on the mentor too, to, you know, kind of keep those relationships built and reach out to see how they're doing. But also don't be afraid to actually reach out to them and be like, hey, I have a question. Because, you know, they're definitely going to be very happy you reached out, so they can answer it.
All right, other questions? Okay, so Brittany's going to stick around with us today. So if you have questions for her, you're welcome to connect with her during dinner or during one of the other sessions we've got going on. But I think what we'll do is transition into our next event, which is our poster session. But before we go, I wanted to also let folks know that during today's event, we are going to be voting on the best poster and the best in night talk. And those are personal choices that you are able to help us reward one of the students that has worked really hard on their poster. So we're going to give $100 to the best poster and $200 for the best in night talk. The way you can tell me you love something, some poster or some talk, is there is some ballots down here in a ballot box. So please fill those out. And then by the end of today, put your vote into the box, and we will let those students know that they have been rewarded with their hard work tomorrow. So if you can do that, that would be great. So the way our poster session works is we have this year's award winners for the HMSC awards have posters displayed in this atrium area. So there are 12 different posters on the windows in this area here, so you can go check those out. We also have food and snack right like under your feet, basically in the hallway behind you. So get a snack, go check out the posters. We also have some invited high school students here that have posters in the iLab. And so that particular group is the Youth as Inventors program that are working in the iLab. So you can check those out as well. So get your ballots, go check them out. And then we're going to start our night talks back in this room at 3:50. So if you could help me get yourself back in here, that would be great. And thanks so much, everybody. One more round of applause for Brittany.